next to the entrance to the museum and Beit Ariella, the library. Wow, thanks everybody from everywhere. I have a really exciting, interesting, timely, and very, very relevant webinar tonight, folks, on nature as an agent of resilience. Our own Alena Kacal, from many of you know, longtime director of the Neely and David Jerusalem Bird Observatory, now working on ecotourism in Israel. And so she's doing so much stuff now in terms of the resilience work in this time of war. Not easy times here. We're glad to be able to present these webinars. For Alena, that's just a big part of what she's been doing since October 8th, more or less. A series of webinars, mostly in Hebrew for kids and for adults, live bird ringing from the field, from the bird observatories. She'll probably tell you a little bit more about that today, and other stuff that we'll be doing. Hi, Maggie and Leon. Thanks very much to our laid board members in the United States and Canada and in the UK, and our chairman, past and present, and our hardworking staff, small though it may be, in North America, and our volunteers in the UK. Thanks to everybody who's joining us here tonight from all corners of the world, certainly all corners of the continent, and we're glad to see everybody here, and we hope we're going to enlighten you and give everybody some hope about how in the midst of what we're calling war routine in Israel, there's no real routine, but that's the term. How in the midst of all this, we need to take care of ourselves, and how nature can play a role. But I will just mention that a lot of the regular stuff is going on. Our field staff are out. Where development plans are being slowly advanced, we're still watching them, and we're doing whatever we can on a regular basis to monitor what's going on now in terms of environmental damage in nature and all sorts of aspects of this horrendous kind of issue in front of us in so many ways. Thank everybody for your support for the emergency work we've been doing in the last 5 weeks. We've hosted hundreds of families in our field schools, evacuees from the war zone, and you all have been so supportive. We tried to raise $315,000. We exceeded that, and more for the next stage of the campaign. And our campaigns are ever evolving, as are the activities on the ground. And we'll be telling you more about that throughout the evening and in time to come. I think we can get going now. We have over 100 people online here. We're also live on Facebook, and we always have some people on Facebook, also on our page and on Birdlife Israel. You can tell your friends, anybody who's watching or who's involved with Birdlife International or Birdlife Israel, we are live on there too, I believe. And I'd like to introduce Alena, who for many of you, I'm sure, needs no introduction. She's a great colleague, a great friend to have, real stalwart of SPNI in Jerusalem and in the country in general. And Alena, I am as eager as anyone else to hear this webinar tonight. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Jay, very much. And thank you for being down there at the vigil. I'm going to share the screen now real quick. So my topic tonight is nature as an agent of resilience. And first of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's joined us tonight. I see a lot of familiar names on the list checking in. So good evening, good afternoon, good morning from wherever you're checking in the world. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and listen. Nature is healing. And second, having a little trouble getting there we go. Nature is healing, and it can help us weather trauma and crisis, both on a personal level and on a communal and national level. you've now heard the basic essence of my talk tonight. I will share some personal thoughts, some research on the topic, and I will close with sharing some of the ways SPNI has been putting this healing to work here in Israel in the last few weeks. I do want to stress one thing before I start. I'm not a therapist or a healthcare professional. I'm an environmental educator with over 35 years experience working in the community here in Israel, the US, and in Trinidad. I'm approaching this topic from that perspective, from the perspective of environmental education, which is the work that we do here at SPNI and at the bird observatories. Nature activities are one tool that we can use to help to heal ourselves and our communities in times of trauma and help to build resilience in ourselves and in our communities. But there are people out there who are suffering and do need professional help, medical help. This does not replace any help that when and where you need it. And I please encourage you, please take care of yourselves as you need to do so. We're with you. We will help, but please look after yourselves out there. I'm a lifelong birder, and believe it or not, I'm a deep introvert. It might surprise a few people. Nature has been my place of refuge since I was a little kid, the place I would go to recharge my batteries and connect with something bigger than myself. I have long known that being out birding or swimming in the ocean or even sitting in my garden can help me to refocus and reconnect with myself, especially when I'm going through a tough time. Our joint experience of Corona just a couple of years ago taught us all how much we depend on the outdoors and on the fresh air. We missed it deeply when we were in lockdown. And it's not a coincidence that hobbies like bird watching and gardening soared in popularity, with many new people joining in during those years. In the last 5 weeks here in Israel, we have suffered a great national trauma, and many of us have been personally affected at some level, sometimes multiple levels. Families and friends, families have been killed, abducted, evacuated, called up to reserves. School and jobs stopped, and we are just getting back into some of those things. We basically had our lives put on hold, and from a day-to-day basis, we face trauma on a new level as we go along. Although we're slowly trying to return to a normal schedule of life, many people are still dealing or are starting to deal with the emotional, spiritual, and physical effects of this trauma. How people are feeling can vary, and people can go back and forth and up and down. There's a lot of people who are sad, depressed, anxious, and scared. Many of us are not sleeping or not sleeping well. We're stressed. We have brain fog. We can't remember things or think straight. So please forgive me if I make any stumbles tonight. My brain is also trying to function at full speed. And many of us are feeling the physical effects of all of this stress and lack of sleep. But I also need to say that people are also actively helping each other and reaching out to make a difference in our communities. And it's been really uplifting and powerful to see how much is being done by the community around us to help and to support and to bring us through what we've been going through. There's many research, and I'm just going to give you a couple examples, but if anybody wants full bibliography, I can send it to you. Research all around the world, helping us understand how nature affects us. One research out of the University of Exeter in England, along with the British Trust for Ornithology and University of Queensland, showed that when people live in neighborhoods with trees and birds and shrubs, they were less likely to suffer from depression, anxiety, and stress. And this particular idea comes through in many research projects around the world. researchers for the Planck Institute for Human Development. It all also showed that bird song reduces anxiety and irrational thoughts or difficult thoughts. This doesn't have to be real bird song. It doesn't have to be out in your garden. Even having a tape of bird song playing in the background can help us somehow to reduce our anxiety. And not just bird song, but the sound of a bubbling brook or the sound of the wind in the trees. All of these sounds, they don't just make us feel good, they actually physically change our minds and how they work. They help to reconnect the neurological pathways in our mind, and physically help us to relax and chemically help us to relax. And like I said, there's so much more research out there that I'm happy to share. I don't want to make this an ongoing academic paper, but just to show you that the research is supporting our efforts here. Rumi, who was a Sufi philosopher, poet back in the 13th century, said that awe is a salve that will heal our eyes. And our eyes being the gateway to our soul. Awe, the sense of awe in nature, is the thing that I think helps us to reconnect and move forward. And what do I mean by awe? Awe might be that feeling you see when you see a flock of pelicans flying over, even in the midst of war. They were migrating in the last few weeks, coming all the way from Africa, from Europe, crossing the deserts, and then coming back in the spring, knowing the direction, surviving the migration. And year after year, we can count on these birds coming back at the same time of year. We look up and there they are. No matter what is going down on the ground with us, the birds are still flying over, and it gives us a sense of awe. Awe can be that feeling you get when you're out in an environment with a fantastic view. The sky, I love the sky in Israel. I take pictures of the sky all the time because there's always so much to see in the sky, and it gives us a feeling of being part of something bigger than ourselves. That's awe. Awe also provides us with this sense of consistency and continuity and stability. I think that's why sunsets and sunrises call us and affect us so much. It's the sense that the sun is still going to set and still going to rise, even when we are in the midst of trauma, even when we're in the midst of difficult times. Life still marches on. And if we go out from that into a bigger picture, like I said, the seasons still change. We're marching through the fall as we speak this month, and moving into the winter. And here we see some beautiful sea squills or hatzavim that are blooming in the hills and in the plains of Israel, telling us that the rains are on the way and that we can expect the cold weather. And that's comforting somehow to know that life still marches on. But awe can also be found in very interesting places. This little caterpillar, there's two caterpillars, I photographed on a little caper bush in the middle of a path going into the house of two of our volunteers from the Bird Observatory, Gerda and Berlina. I went to have a cup of coffee with them, and they showed me this little bush coming out of a hole in the ground next to the pathway, and it's covered in butterflies, not in butterflies, in caterpillars. And they have been finding awe in this caper bush over the last couple of weeks, watching butterflies come in to lay their eggs. And they actually saw the butterflies laying their eggs, and now watching the caterpillars grow. And they will probably watch them move on into the next stages and eventually metamorphose into caterpillars. And so even in our urban environments and even in the strangest of places, we can still find places where we can experience the awe of nature. I want to talk a little bit about what resilience is, since I said that nature can be an agent of resilience. Resilience is that thing within us that helps us to adapt and to change and to survive the changes that go along around us. And as a parent, this is something I spend a lot of time trying to do with my kids, building their resilience, their optimism, their willingness to adapt, their flexibility, their ability to solve problems, their community and social support, their sense of humor. These are all things I know is going to take them further as they go out into the world and give them the strength and the flexibility to manage the changes and the tasks and the challenges that they're going to face in the world. And this is also something as an environmental educator that we talk a lot about our role in helping individuals and communities to be resilient. So when we work with the local communities in a place like the Gazelle Valley Park or the Jerusalem Bird Observatory, we are making connections between people. We're giving them the tools that they need to become resilient human beings and resilient communities. And a lot of time when we talk about things like climate change, we're also talking about how much we can affect resilience to the effects of climate change within communities, within nations. And it all comes down to this individual definition of resilience. And we have within us aspects of our being, I would say, that help us to cope with stress and trauma and help us to be resilient. So I'll just break some of those down. We're talking about our bodies. You know, many of us find that going for walks or getting involved in sport or doing yoga, the physical activity of involving our body helps us to reduce stress. There's the mind. It might be meditation, or it might be learning something new that we haven't learned before, or just crossword puzzles. It's engaging the mind in something that's not related to the stress event can help us to cope with the stress and give us some time off. And I'll tell you how we've been doing that with SPNI in a little while. There's the level of feelings. We feel, sharing our feelings with other people, examining those feelings, letting ourselves feel the feelings. We need to acknowledge to each other and to ourselves that we're feeling low when we're feeling low. Let ourselves cry. Let ourselves, even in the midst of trauma, recognize when we feel happy and say, I actually feel happy right now. This event, this thing that I'm doing is making me feel happy. And acknowledging it and giving it its time to be there, even in the midst of everything else. Our belief system has a great, powerful effect on us right now. Jay was at a vigil. There's many prayers and people getting together to do psalms or pray for the people who have been killed or kidnapped. Our belief systems can really give us a powerful connection. And I think that they also lead to the next one, which is our social connections. For many of us, our synagogues or churches or schools or book clubs or bird clubs, they are part of our belief system, but they're also our social connections. And they're the ones that are going to help us through. And this is a time when reaching out to somebody maybe that you haven't talked to in a while. If you know someone here in Israel, you haven't checked in with them, even just a simple email, I'm thinking of you, makes such a big difference, especially in a world where we feel like anti-Semitism and a lot of negative stuff is coming up all around the world. I know for myself, every time I open social media, there's so much negativity. And to get a personal message from someone just means so much. Even if I don't have time to get into long explanations or answers, just saying thank you and acknowledging that connection was made makes everybody feel a lot better. And the last thing is imagination. Art, poetry. I'm doing a lot of sketching. I call it doodling these days. Anything that can let us express our emotions and put it out in a um, proper proper way is very, very important. I'll just touch on this really quickly. There was a study done by Professor Shaul Kimchi of the psychology department at Tel Hai, along with other international colleagues, and they studied kids, students in 6 different countries, um, about resilience. And what they found is that the higher quality of life that was reported by the individuals in work, social life, leisure, health, etc., the higher they reported their own personal, communal, and national resilience. And the effect is true. If they reported high resilience, then they tended to have a higher quality of life. Um, this does not necessarily mean financial or we think quality of life being very material, but it's the connections, it's the satisfaction, it's the feeling that you have support in your life. These are the things that give quality of life. And one of the interesting things that they found in the 6 countries is that the Israeli students rated their quality of life very, very high, among the best of all 6 countries, even though they also acknowledged that Israel was a very dangerous place to live. So even though they said that their quality of life was high, and they reported their resilience as high. So we're kind of counting on this being true to help us get through the next little while as well. But we can't stop. We have to continue to provide tools to keep this resilience going. It's important to point out that trauma is being experienced not as a single one-time stressful event. This has been going on for 5 weeks. It's not over yet. It's complex, it's ongoing, it's repetitive, it's prolonged, and we're not alone in it. Any interaction right now between any 2 people here in Israel, or between someone here in Israel and someone overseas, both people can be reacting to trauma at different levels of proximity and different levels of intensity, and sometimes at several levels at once. And it's important to recognize that both parties or all parties are feeling this, and be able to give space to everybody in the interaction. Some of the activities in nature that can help, or activities in nature can help to heal by doing the following things. First of all, they allow us to practice mindfulness. And when I mean mindfulness, it's that sitting down and noticing what's around us, not just letting it be the background, but letting it be the focus of our attention. Sitting down and noticing this. This is a beautiful blue throat that we are starting to see here in Israel, hopping around on the ground, sitting down, noticing him, noticing the color, being aware. That is mindfulness. And it focuses our brain and focuses our thoughts on something outside of ourselves. Activities in nature can get us moving physically, going on a hike or a walk, or some sort of activity in nature. And this physical activity helps release endorphins and reduce the things that create the stress within our bodies. Okay. Activities in nature can build connections between the people who are there, and as we build those connections, also build the willingness to trust others. It can lower our stress and blood pressure. Just being in nature for just a little while lowers your blood pressure. It's amazing. It helps us to sleep at night. When we get physical outside, we get some fresh air. It's more likely to help us to sleep at night, even for just a little while. But it does help. I notice when I go out that those nights I sleep a lot better. And they help us to prevent burnout. For 5 weeks, I've been working very hard to bring webinars to people and to help with the Bird Observatory. And sometimes I have to tell you, I sit for 8-10 hours in front of the computer on the phone doing things, didn't get outside, and I can feel the burnout coming. And that's when I know I need to get out and do something in nature, whether it's bird watching or just sitting outside with a cup of coffee. But it's very important right now, especially for everybody, not to get to that point and to prevent that burnout. We have a long haul ahead of us. We need to pace ourselves. And last but not least, it helps us to improve memory and reduce that brain fog that develops. Some of us are familiar with that brain fog from Corona lockdowns, but the connections we make in being mindful, in getting physical, also help those mental synapses in our brain to work properly and help us to move forward. And the great thing is, going out in nature, no experience is needed. You can go sit and watch the flowers and know nothing about them and still enjoy them. It's inexpensive. There's parks and open spaces almost everywhere. And the sky is always there. You don't need money to go outside and just enjoy the nature that has been provided us. No equipment is needed. I mean, you can go and buy a camera. Photography is a lot of fun. You can buy a pair of binoculars, but you don't have to have them. And that's what's so wonderful. You can go and use our senses and our ears and our eyes and enjoy just as much as if we had all that expensive equipment. And it can be done anywhere from our bedroom window, looking out the window, to a park, to the beach, on the drive to work. It can be done wherever you are. You can take 5 minutes and just be mindful of the nature that's around you. And by the way, the little flower here, we just had some of our first rains over the last couple of weeks, and we have our bulbs sprouting all over the place, little flowers coming up in every direction. It's actually a really nice time of year to go out and just look for them. In the last couple of years, there's been some great books written about the healing aspect of nature. Joe Harkness wrote a fantastic book called Bird Therapy. Joe suffered from post-traumatic stress and was at a point in his life where he was pretty suicidal and depressed. And he took up birding, and he credits birding with saving his life. And he has a lot of great stories and tips on how birding has helped him to get back on track, some of which I've talked about already. There's also a book called Ornithotherapy, which I highly recommend, by Holly Merker and Richard and Sophie Crosley. Also taking bird watching as a therapeutic activity for people who are suffering from trauma, of all kinds, not just from war, but and also for kids. Excuse me a second. Kids who are at-risk kids, and pretty much anybody can benefit from this ornithotherapy. And there's a new book out that I haven't had a chance to read yet, but it's hitting the social media right now, Birding Under the Influence by Dorian Anderson. And he cycled across America looking for birds, and it was part of his recovery from substance abuse. So highly recommend these books if you're interested in doing some further reading on the topic. In addition, there's been several books out about the art of mindful birding. And I will admit to being a birder for sport. I list, I do competitions. I love that aspect of birding, but I've been finding myself doing more and more of what we would call mindful birding, going out and just sitting and absorbing what's going on around me, the stories that the birds are telling me. and the interactions between the birds and nature and between the environment, and taking time to to just be in nature. And there's a whole network called the Mindful Birding Network. People all over the world are taking this up and leading mindful birding trips and workshops. And I highly recommend, wherever you are, get onto the network on social media. They also have a website, and see what's going on in your area. One of the great things about mindful birding is you don't have to be an expert birder or an expert at identifying to go out and just enjoy birds and nature. Now, how has SPNI been using this to help our communities in the last 5 weeks? First of all, I want to say that I have never been so proud to work for the Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel under Dan Alon, our new CEO's guidance. We have been doing fantastic things over the last 5 weeks to be there for the community. Dan, from the very get-go, from day one, basically said we need to do what we need to do. It's going to cost us money. We're not going to wait for the money. We're just going to start. And immediately they opened the field schools in the south so that people who needed to immediately evacuate from their communities along the Gaza envelope had a place to go immediately. We provided housing, food, activities in natures for the kids, clothing, you name it, it was provided for them. And all of this within a safe space, surrounded by nature and supportive staff and volunteers. And there was a newsletter that went out from Dan Alon explaining a lot of what was going on. Hundreds of people have taken advantage of this possibility, and we have opened our doors to soldiers and to new immigrants. And even now in the field school in Gedi, we're running a school for the families who were evacuated from Kibbutz Be'eri in nature, and hopefully this will help them greatly. And, you know, we are getting feedback from families. Here's one letter that Dan reported from one of the parents thanking us and letting us know that it helped them to heal, reset, and gather strength for the next stage of their journeys. One of the things that I was doing, and we started this on October 8th, the day after, luckily, we have a history of doing online webinars. We started during Corona, bringing nature to you in your homes here in Israel, and also in English for our community abroad. We jumped straight back into that with a webinar on the 9th of October. And so far, we've done over 55 online webinars, some of them live. You can see here on the left, Avner and Haim and, at the Bird Observatory in Jerusalem, and on the right, Dr. Yoav Perlman doing live bird ringing online with schools and elderly who are stuck in their homes and families across the country. We've touched in a whole variety of topics, lectures for adults and workshops for kids, live birding from the site. And we've had over 50,000 people take part in these online webinars, and they're all online on our website and on YouTube for people to get back to if they've missed them. We even did a couple in English and at least one in Arabic, which was very well attended. Here's a couple photos that were sent to us by parents of their kids checking into some of the webinars. And what this provided, it not only did it bring nature into the home, but it provided an hour of distraction from worries and fears. And I'm not a big fan of television as a babysitter, but a lot of parents said, thank you, thank you, thank you for giving my kids a distraction, because it helped me have some time to regroup and re-energize. And it was a very valuable resource for us. And we're happy to help. Not only that, but as soon as we were able, in conjunction with the directives coming from the Home Front Command of the IDF, we opened our sites to visitors. The Gazelle Valley Park has been open pretty much the whole time. And they started to offer some activities in the afternoon for families who wants to come in and enjoy the park and the gazelles. All of this is free of charge. SPNI started to offer free walks last week in safe areas around the country. Last week, over 500 people participated in these walks. They were offered also free of charge, and we will continue to do this in the days to come. And here you can see some of the National Service volunteers helping make pita outside, always a fun activity for families, and some of the activities that took place over the weekend outdoors. The Neely and David Jerusalem Bird Observatory is also open. We've been ringing there, not just live online, but we've had people coming in to do photography and watch the birds on a daily basis. And we've started offering daily tours for families that have been evacuated, as well as other families who want to come and join in. Our after school programs are starting up, and here you can see a picture from last week. We had a walk of the English Bird Club at the Gazelle Valley Park, and we're starting to do walks and trips where we can, in accordance with the Homefront Command directives. And of course, the bird hide and the shop are open every single day. Eilat has been a main focus for so much activity. Many of the evacuated families from the south and from the north have found themselves in the Eilat and in the southern Arava, with over 60,000 people from those zones descending on the area. And so the IBRC, the Eilat Bird Park, have opened their doors to daily activities. The staff there has been absolutely fantastic, allowing these families who are traumatized beyond what we can imagine to come in and have some safe space, someone to talk to, an activity to do, crafts, and so on and so forth. And they continue to do this, again, free of charge. We are trying to help. As you want to come, we're there, and we will open our hearts and our arms and our souls to you and help you where we can. And SPNI continues to adapt and plan in order to keep helping to strengthen resilience and healing through nature. We will have a lot of activities planned through the next couple of months, or we are already looking ahead to what this is going to mean for the organization next year. We see this as a really key part of what we can do for our community, and working with local communities with these activities, we believe helps build the resilience of these communities, heal people, and all of this can help as a nation to move forward from this as best as we can into the future months. I just want to thank all the people that helped with the photographs for this presentation. I wanted to try to bring you as many views of nature as possible, because even looking at those views, I think, helps lower our stress. And again, nature is healing. I invite you to go out, sit, enjoy, have a cup of coffee, and let it do its work. Thank you.
Wow. Alena, thank you so much. I don't know if I can be seen here. I'm not really. I'm on the phone in the car now. Wow. I mean, I'm blown away. So much incredible knowledge and interesting facts that you bring up, things that we're just beginning to, I think, assimilate both in the chevra and as a country. These, the medical benefits of nature, the mental health benefits of nature. It's not. It's not only. It's not only a great time and so obviously fun and so much to do and a great way to do all those things you talked about. But it's really
Absolutely.
healthy for you. And
Absolutely.
that is part of the evolving plans we have. I
Mm-hmm.
want to kind of mention two things. One is that we, I don't know if David has put a link in the chat or he will. We're still raising money. We're an organization that lives two-thirds of and most of the time, two-thirds of our budget comes from our own income. And things are pretty quiet in the ecotourism business, where a lot of our money is made by among here in Israel among Israelis, and yet we've opened our doors to evacuees. We're continuing to do that on a smaller scale, but we have on a rolling basis families in need staying in absorption centers, and all of the educational work that we've described in our campaign, educational and what we call educational respite from the trauma, and that Alen talked about a little bit in our field schools, in the centers in the Dead Sea and in a lot where evacuees have been, or where people from both the northern border and the Gaza area have been evacuated to hotels. We have educational staff and our shinshinim, our gap year volunteers are flooding those places with all kinds of hands-on activities outdoor where possible, and of course the rich array of online offerings. And this is what I want to mention to our Hebrew speakers in this audience. Maybe some of you who live in Israel and are want to learn some Hebrew and hear webinars. I want to make sure that we can get you on our mailing lists in Hebrew, so that you're aware of our Hebrew offerings. SPNI membership in SPNI in Israel is, I think, 19 shekels a month per family. It's a separate stream. My team and I don't handle that, but we're happy to pass that on, and that'll get you on certain mailing lists. But you don't have to be a member to watch our stuff either. And Alen will make sure that anybody who wants to just contact me or Alen, and we'll make sure that you're updated on the Hebrew offerings. We a couple
Great.
questions already.
Yes, so I'm looking at some of the questions. Leon, you
Okay.
asked if the presentation will be available, and yes, it's recorded on Facebook first of all, and it will be available on the Nature Israel website, I assume, along with all the other presentations from the past.
Tomorrow we
So
can send links. Tomorrow we'll
yeah,
send a link
so
out.
send some links. Lucy, you're asking what areas have free walks. Well, Jerusalem definitely, Magan Michael, and the central part of the country. Anywhere that the Home Front Command has deemed green, we have started to do walks. And if you want more information, I know you know how to contact me. Give us a buzz. Scott, you have a very interesting idea. Scott says that any chance some of the high school students at the field schools could give live tours for audiences outside of Israel or even inside. Students may be living now in these schools, healing for them and healing for us. That could be an interesting idea. I hadn't thought of that. I will definitely investigate and see if we can maybe do something like that. Um, and there's a question about damages or injuries to migratory birds. So this question has come up a lot in almost every webinar that we've had about what is the environmental damage to the nature and birds. We are still trying to evaluate that. Many of the areas that are affected, we are not able to get into just yet, or only in a limited way. There's definitely some environmental damage being done by all the war is not good for the environment. As far as migratory birds go, for the most part, they're still coming. They're moving through the country. They haven't stopped. They are a bit more skittish than they have been. The loud noises are making them move on out of some of the areas, but then they just move on to somewhere else that's more hospitable. I'm not sure. At least it's not. We can't really say for sure what long term damage might have been done. Were there any other questions on the chat?
I'll just add to that, Alen, just to fill in what you mentioned about the on ground environmental damage, and we can't get there because what's happened is as you know, many of you, as you know, Israel has called up 360,000 army reservists, and many of them are, and even those that are in active duty, they're all based on these in and around army bases, and many times just in fields. And you know, we're talking about 360,000 soldiers. Of course, hundreds are living in our field schools and have over the last several weeks because, you know, basically the Army tells many of them there's no beds or cots in the bases themselves. Here, take a tent and go live somewhere. You know, they have tanks and heavy equipment and stuff like that. And so there's a lot. We think there might be a lot of damage. We don't know to what kind of areas because all of these areas are closed military zones, and now that they're sort of functioning as bases. So that's what's happening on the ground. And these are areas, you know, they could be near nature reserves, adjacent to nature reserves, and you know, that's what we still, that damage still needs to be assessed.
Great. So there's a
Um,
comment in the chat from Craig. He says, I'm a psychiatrist in Philadelphia, and the November 2023, I need to plug in my computer, warning me that the battery is low. The November 2023 edition of Psychiatric News from the American Psychiatric Association. Second, I just lost it. Includes something about this topic. This chat is difficult to sometimes key in on here. Hang on one second. Where did it go? Oh, so it includes a story, cover story entitled Movement Emerges to Include Green Space as a Social Determinant of Mental Health. So yes, this is something that is taking hold all around the world. There's a lot of work in America being done with vets suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome, taking them out hiking. I believe the Sierra Club and the national parks are very heavily involved with that. And many countries are starting to give prescriptions for nature activities for people suffering from all kinds of mental health and trauma, etc. David, someone's asking for the link to put. Can you put the link in the chat again for donations? And you can find us on if you look for the Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel. You can find us. You can find us online, and there's a link there for donations as well. So, I think
we're
question. I think that's it for the questions, unless anybody else has any new ones. On my behalf, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in and joining us, and just a shout out to my in-laws who were online today from Wisconsin. Good to see you, and lots of friends and people who've been in our festivals here in Israel. We had to cancel the Hula Valley Festival this November, which is heartbreaking, but we hope to be back in the future and to have the opportunity to go birding together sometime soon. So take care of yourselves, everybody. Stay healthy, stay well.
Thank you so much, Alena. People are asking for your contact information for references. You know, everybody has mine on the email, but your email, if you want to just say it, or maybe
my
put it
email is Alan K. I'll type it in. to the thing, at spni.org.il, and I'm also on Facebook. So look me up, um, or
A
you can
L
contact
A L E A
Len.
L E N K ALENK
Okay,
at
yeah,
spni.org.il.
yeah, and you can also reach out to Jay. You can easily get it to you as well.
Of
Okay.
course, of course. A tour de force. Think your new title, at least temporarily in SPNI, needs to be Nature Healing Director. It really, really, I think was very helpful and hopeful. 54 minutes we've spent. Uh, Great to get one of these in under the hour, actually. And I think everybody's just wants to meditate on the kind of stuff you're talking about, and ideally to do that outdoors. So
Yeah.
the donation links are in the chat. I want to thank everybody for being here and for all the incredible comments and feedback you've given Alen for this for this time we've spent together. Uh, Not to be taken for granted. Nature is it's a great escape. It's not just a great escape, but it is a great escape. And even talking about it is in some way that kind of soothing and healing escape. So thank you very, very much. And I don't know when our next webinar is. We're having it's just an iffy schedule here based on what's going on in the war. One of the things coming up is the Gazelle Valley Park was supposed to have a festive opening ceremony for its really cool underwater above ground observatory. I understand the opening of course has been put off, and when that is there, Amir will be with us, Amir Balaban, who's been in Milouim, and he's been he's been involved
Reserves.
in the war effort in the reserves and the reserve duty, and I think otherwise involved in war efforts. He will be with us. He was supposed to be with us in mid-November, and he'll be with us as soon as he can to report on stuff. As will Dan Alone, our CEO. Certainly in December after Thanksgiving, we will return with webinars. We will keep you posted. And thanks to everybody in the States and Canada and the UK and around the world. Thanks to our board members, our volunteers, our supporters, everybody who joins us on these webinars so often. Really appreciate hearing from you all. Alena, it's really true what you said about the, brief notes of thinking of you. Have done a lot, hearing from all kinds of people all over, and especially people that are also concerned as we are with Israeli nature and preserving the beauty and the healing powers. So thank you very much, everybody. Thanks to David Amichai doing back office from his home in Jerusalem. David, chapeau as usual, and Alena, thanks
Thank
very
you,
much.
guys.
Lila Tov,
Let's go
Erev
birding.
Tov, good afternoon. Yep. Bye from Tel Aviv and Jerusalem.